What's up, everyone? Welcome to Stuff I Never Learned from the Schoolbook. Special night, same time, special night. Wednesday, we're going to be doing a show tonight. Thank you for showing up. Appreciate those of you who are here and those that are going to be watching on recording. Thank you for watching as normal. If you don't know me, my name is Tom Springer. For those of you who do, welcome back. Tonight, well, it's 7 o'clock, so that means 8 o'clock Eastern, 6 Mountain, 5 Pacific. Hold on a second, I do this. 2 o'clock Hawaiian, 11 hours ahead in Indonesia, 17 hours ahead in Australia. I think that kind of covers everyone who comes into the show. But anyways, welcome. I'm not going to talk much, but I am going to bring in my special guest. Tonight we did a special showing, which is outstanding. This guy that I've had the chance to talk with and kind of research, and I just tell him stalk. But the stalking and everything else, Robbie Thomas, great guy. I'm just going to bring it in and let him go. Robbie, brother, how you doing?
How you doing?
Good.
Good. Nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for everybody who's tuning in and going to listen to this wild and crazy show.
Yeah, Jamie's piping in right now. That's actually Jamie. She's showing up as Red Ribbon, but it's her name is Jamie. Hi, Jamie. And then you'll be seeing this one pop in a couple times. This is actually my wife right here.
Hi, Nicole.
I'll tell you the same thing that I tell everybody else. My house is not haunted that we know of, but she sits in the other room and she listens and she watches for internet problems or anything else. But she's on a delay. So you'll hear her laugh like 2 or 3 seconds after we've already got to the point. And it was like, what is that? That's just her laughing in the background. So, and there's Stuart. What's up, Stuart? How you doing, brother? He's calling in from Texas, which is nice and hot right now. I can't imagine. So anyways, thanks for coming on the show. Like I said, we'll get a lot more of these rolling in as people come in. But thanks for coming in. I greatly appreciate it. I am now a admirer of you and follower of you for everything that I've researched. So that is outstanding. I was lucky enough to find you. I want to tell you how I found you.
Okay.
I get these random. Apparently I'm supposed to connect with some people. Because you just popped up as a friend request, as a friend suggestion. At the time, you and I didn't have any like friends, but every once in a while I come across one that just said, here's a friend suggestion for you. And I did the research on you. I saw you and I'm like, yeah, this is definitely someone I want to get to know. I'm intrigued. I'm a little bit in awe by everything you've done. So it's kind of cool. But yeah, so that's how I came about finding you. And then as I said, I stalked you down and asked you to come on the show and you agreed, and that's your fault. So
well, thank you for being my stalker now. I will alarm Border Patrol and police and all, and we're good with it. But I'm glad. You know what? That's very flattering that you say that, and I truly appreciate you and appreciate what you've done. It's great to be here, and we talked. I mean, it's just two buddies talking, chewing the rag, and we'll go through a lot of stuff that'll probably make people's eyeballs, go wide. But it's real and it's raw, and we'll get into it.
Yeah. So I'm gonna get the canned one out of the way because I always do first thing. How did you get started? When did you learn that you had abilities to be able to help people out, and what made you decide to pursue still written in English, pursue what you're doing now?
Okay, that's a very broad spectrum question.
Oh, it is.
It is. And we're going to take you back to age 2, and we'll go right up the line real quick. You have this snot-nosed kid running around at age 2. And I'm saying I'm either adopted or I know I'm a part of me out there, Mom. Mm-hmm. And then my mother would say, he's doing it again. And my father would say, get in here, leave your mother alone. So I'm born in 1966.
Okay.
My mother had a child back in the 50s, right?
Okay.
Not married to my father at this time, but another man promised her that he would marry her, and he didn't. Now, being indigenous too in the 50s, we all know what's happening around America and Canada right now. The world does residential schools. Because my mother became pregnant, the government took my mother from 1952 to 1955, my uncles, my aunt, away from my grandfather, and put them in a residential school. My mother gave birth to my sister, and the nuns took my sister and adopted her out to, and I'm not saying this to be crass or rude or insensitive to other people,
but facts.
Just facts.
Right.
She was adopted to a white family. Now, the way genocide worked is they wanted to kill, and they use this term in Canada many times in the government, to kill the Indian and the child. So that's what they referred to was to take a child and give to a white family to raise, so then they could kill the Indian and the child.
Right.
So here we are, snot-nosed kid running around saying this at age 2. Come fast forward. We're going to go back and forth in here so I can tie all the story for people. So come fast forward, 1994. My mother, the night before she passed, and everybody's heard of this term, sleep paralysis. So I'm in bed and I can't move. And you know, I'm not a slouch. I'm a pretty big guy, and I can't move. And I'm looking over to my one side, and my wife is sound asleep, and I can't even verbalize. The 4 horsemen were there, and the white horseman starts to speak to me, telling me everything's going to be okay, and my life is going to be fine. But this is what's going to happen today. And he laid it out for me. So morning rolls around. I'm bewildered. I mean, I couldn't even talk proper. My mind was blown.
Right.
Every day I go over to my mother's house. I was a mummy boy, and I go over for coffee and toast in the morning before work. So this is like every other day. And I went over to my mom's house. Normally she would greet me and hug me, but this was really weird because she had her back to me facing the counter, and I just sat down. There was no greeting. And then I just came out and said, Mom, I'm compelled. I have to tell you what happened last night. And I start to explain what I just explained to your audience. She just turned around very nonchalantly and just said, you go home and I'll call you later and watch your daughter to babysit your daughter. So I had that push-pull factor where you got to be there because something's wrong and you've already been shown something's wrong.
Right.
But she asked me to leave, so I'm being directed out. So I leave. So now I'm in my house with my wife, and my best friend come over. We're getting ready to go to work, and the phone rings. And it's my father, and he's screaming at the top of his lungs. It's your mother. It's your mother. So we race over. I can remember the gurney coming out of the house and the EMT on top doing chest compressions.
Right.
Her little purple sock on her foot, her little hand hanging over the side, and then bringing her to the ambulance. Still kills me today. Every freaking show I do.
Right.
She's my best friend. And we went into the emergency area, and they're backing up the ambulance. And I'm standing at the door. The guy gets out. They bring the gurney down with her on it. You walk, and they're pushing it. This guy's still doing compressions on top of her. And they get right to me. And then the guy says, stop. And I heard her say something. And the guy who's doing the compressions, he heard her too. But she was dead. And he looked at me and he goes, you heard that, right? And I said, yeah, I heard that. And then they pulled her in, and they did what the doctors do. And then they come and tell you your loved one's passed.
Right.
So that killed me to tell her it was her day.
Right.
A week goes by roughly. We're having the funeral. My mom's side of the family, my uncle, my aunt, pull me aside. They said, you were right all those years. And she's been looking for you. And I'm still like awestruck and just not there, right? Like anybody would be.
Right.
And I said, who are you talking about? And they said, her name's Marie. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that's really like, who's this, right? And she goes, you're right about having a sister. And so going back to age 2 and confirming it at age 28, I mean, it just fulfilled all that from back then till now.
Right.
And everything in between, right? And it just solidified everything. So when you say, where did it begin? And it was a very strong hold on me. And as I was growing up, I remember saying things about angels. When we come here, we're all with angels. We come here like a pack, a football team that follows us, and helps us in life. And they put me in a bubble when I was age 3. I had a red dot on my forehead, and they couldn't figure out what it was. So they rushed me to Toronto, Canada, and put me in this ICU unit in a bubble. And I was in isolation for a long time. So then when we're leaving and everything seemed to be okay, I remember sitting up in the old cars. They used to have the bench seats.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Remember those?
Oh, yeah.
And I lean over and I have my elbow and I go, Mom, don't worry, because, Carmichael died. That was my one guide. I said, Carmichael died in the hospital, and now I got a bigger Carmichael. And I sat back, and I remember my parents looking at each other, and I'm explaining to them about angels and stuff going on. So there's these little tidbits I'm throwing in here as everybody's listening, of my life growing up. So then when I went to Sunday school, and they put me, I must have been the only kid that kicked out of Sunday school.
Actually, I'm sorry, but you're not.
I remember sitting down with all the rest of the kids, and the lady sitting on a little stool talking, holding the Bible and talking about angels. And then I started piping up and saying, what about the other angels? There's other angels out there and other planets. And I think that's when I remember my grandfather come and get me. They give me a balloon and say goodbye and all that, right? Oh, yeah. But yeah, so that's childhood. Growing up into my adolescence. Now, I wrote my first book 2003, and it was published. So I have 10 books. In the first book, I talk about my adolescence, and I talk about how my peer section would have crushed me if I came out and said, I do this and I can see this and what have you.
Right.
So I'm 13 years of age now. My father bought this house close to the high school I'm going to attend. We renovated it, but before my father bought the house, a man died in the house. And so we're renovating the home, doing what we did. It was a hot August night. We're just about finished all renovations, everything looking great. And I remember open curtain in my bedroom, the moonlight coming in, hot night, turn the light off and go to bed. And I turned left, and there he was. And everybody, we know what shadow people and what they look like on many shows people talk about. Well, there he was. Brim hat, overalls. I can make out his knuckles, a little more clear than just black. You can make out who he was. And he took a step forward. Well, I let out one of those huge girly screams. And oh yeah, I could wake up the neighborhood. And my mother come flying in, turn the light on, and of course he's not there.
Right.
I'm explaining now to my mother what I've just explained to you, right? And she says, well, my mother was very spiritual, being indigenous, very spiritual. She says, well, give it time. And this really struck me. She goes, give it time. Maybe he'll come back and talk with you. So normally, parents don't talk like that. Right. So, okay. Because my mom knew how I was. And women have intuition. Let's just put it that way. Women have very strong intuition. And yeah, that's a different story. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, over the course of time, during the rest of that summer, he would visit, and then he explained to me that, and it's funny because I just had a talk with an old friend of mine about the 3 gentlemen living across the street, and he knew them too, and we lived in the same area. So I'm going to say Mr. Leach lived adjacent from us. Mr. Whiting lived directly across. Mr. Harding was on the other corner.
Okay.
And this man was explaining to me that was his 3 best friends. And then he said, they're all going to pass very suddenly. So Mr. Leach was a very stout man. over the course of maybe a couple months, not even, he went from being that stout man to a very skinny man. I remember him walking across the street. When I sit on the front porch with my father, he always did that to talk with him. But he was holding his pants, and you could fit 2 other Mr. Leaches inside those pants.
Geez.
So that's how much weight he lost, right? He died of cancer. Right after Mr. Leach passed away, Mr. Harding died in a hunting accident. And then Mr. White died of a heart attack. And then my mother, as we went along, I explained to her about this too. And she just looked and she goes, that's how spirit works. And so she was more my nurturer and upbringing of how I become. And then we'll go right into age 20. I went through to be a police officer twice. Actually, back up, age 17. You know, I went did the psychology testing, the physical testing. I looked like I was 20, 21. Just a big kid, right? And they took 3 auxiliaries that day. I'm one of them. And I didn't care what anybody said. I was a cop, because that's all my mind is. I'm a cop now, whatever.
Yeah.
I was actually a peacock. That's what I was. Right? Seriously, yeah, you know, whatever, right? So they put us up into the chief's office, and they took the other 2 auxiliaries and put me to my left. And those guys are just gabbing away, and we're all looking, smiling, and I'm over to the right by myself. And this big burly guy comes in, big chief guy, and, you know, he sits down. He congratulated those 2. And then he grabs a piece of paper on his desk and he goes, son, how old are you? And I said, gee, and again, you know, I'm 17, right? And all in my mind is, I'm going to be in a squad car. I'm going to be a cop, right? That mentality, right?
Yep.
And he goes, son, you have to be 20 to be an auxiliary. You got to come back. And how did you make it through all this being 17? Oh, so yeah, I was hired and fired the same day, right? And but I went on, I persevered, and in age 2021, I was hired on in a town outside of Toronto called Peel Regional Police. There's a lady on my social media. She goes back to the time I was hired. She's actually on my social media. She worked there at the time, so she knows, right? It's funny how many followers I have that been in my life all these years.
For so many years, yeah.
It's crazy, the little tidbits and ties they have to it. But yeah, so I went through all that again. I passed, went home, and then it was the next day I'm sitting in my kitchen having coffee, and then I hear accident. And so I run out my back door and hop the fence. I look over, and there's a lady, and she's running in her nightgown, house coat type thing, and she's just screaming at the top of her lungs, right? And so I hop the fence, and she points, and it was a row of townhomes like this and one like this, right? So I had to run like this and make a curve to go out to the road to see if there was any accident.
Right, something.
And so I'm doing that, Tom. I'm looking for blood, and there's cars going. There's no accident. And then a guy to my left goes, come here. So I'll go over to the sliding door. I take one step in. I see a woman screaming, running around a table, and another guy holding a doorknob to my right. He goes like this. So I go over to him, and he opens the door. Didn't say a word to me. He just opened the door, and I'm looking on the ground for blood, because first responders, this is the first thing that goes through your mind, right? When you say accident is blood, I'm looking for a trail of blood.
Right.
And then he opens the door, shoves me in, shuts the door. It was a small bathroom. It was like just a toilet and a sink and a very small little area. I mean, it was very small.
Yeah.
So I look up, and then he's looking at me, right? This gentleman. And I just took over first responding, and I went over to check for vitals, and I looked at his mouth, his face, and how gaunt, and his lips were like bluish kind of. Mm-hmm. So I checked for vitals, and I go to bring him down for CPR, and I hear, let me go. So I stopped for a minute and looked around the room. There's nobody in there. So the funniest thing is that any other time would have caught on to that.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't there mentally for that. I was there for him, right?
Yeah. Your first responder mode, not the other mode.
Yeah. What the fuck is this? I know, whatever. So I go back and I check for vitals, and Nothing. So I go again, and it got really loud, like, let me go. So I did stop, and it clicked in. So I remember backing up, holding the door, looking at him. I opened the door, and I kept my eye on him. And I walked out, because, I know he's going to get up or something. He's talking.
Right.
No. But anyways, I walk out, I shut the door. And if you remember me saying there's only 2 people in that kitchen, when I looked around, there must have been 1,000 freaking people in there, and they're all just, it was packed, and they were just staring at me. And then I'm looking at everybody, and the family and friends, right? And they're all hoping for the best.
Right.
And then at the wrong opportune time, my father comes in the door, and he goes, well, how did it go? And then my response was so sudden. I just went like this, like, no. And then everybody's screaming, and I was like, oh, no, I did the wrong thing, right? Well, it turned out it's very uncanny that it was my sister's best friend's father. And so I decided I don't want to be a cop no more. I know my direction and where God's going to take me, Creator, and I had to follow this path. So they say you can't quit because you did the testing. We spent money on you.
Right.
And they're very livid that they tried to, say you can't do this. And I said, yeah, I'm done. They said, okay, here's a trade-off. We're going to send a film crew to your house. You're going to get on this working tool that's for EMTs, firefighters, and police officers who quit under duress. And you better say you're stressed out, right? And it's like, yeah. So I see all these guys come in, set up all this camera about a week or 2 later, and sergeant and the captain. And then, they're asking the questions. And I blatantly said exactly what I told everybody here. And I said, yeah, he just told me, let him go. Their faces were just like staring at, like, who's this idiot? Right? And their jaws are falling down. And I said, well, that's what happened. You asked the question, and I'm answering it truthfully. Right. So, yeah, that's my way out of the force. And, but then I getting right into it again, because my first case was 1990 and this is 2022. So 32 years now.
Yeah. That's interesting, because 1990 is when I joined the military. So here we are 32 years later.
32 years later.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. So I do want to go back and say hi to some people really quick. I know Joe's in here. Joe shows up as Facebook user because he's at work. He's like, must be Christmas in July twice in a week. And this is because this is my second live stream. So I appreciate that, Joe. Thanks for coming on, brother. He's the one when I do the what time it is in Hawaii. He's the reason why. So
okay.
I know you're probably like, why are you doing all these different time for those? But yeah, we have people from all over the place to watch. So I want to say hi to Bobby. Bobby's here. What's up, brother? Bobby and I used to be part of the same investigation team. But so he's basically like family to me. So we have Missy on here. She stopped in to say hi. Hi, Missy.
Hello.
Yeah, she actually works with my wife. So
cool.
Yeah. And then we have Mr. Nighthawk on here. There you go. Mr. William Nighthawk is on here. He is
hello, Mr. Nighthawk.
Native American, veteran like I am, everything else. So he always pops in and says hi too. Once you start going to some of your conversations, he'll probably pipe up. So just be ready for it. But no, that's great. That's pretty cool how from such an early age, and it just all tied together. Like when you jump the time stream like that, it made sense.
Right. And there's more integral moments, but just little oddball things, that would be boring. But we want to get into the good stuff. I'm just trying to advance everybody through my boring life.
not so much. I couldn't fit all your stuff on one page. So, so let me ask you.
Yes.
Like I said, I know my audience will warm up here in a second and ask questions because they're nosy like that. Yes, I said it. Screw you all. What was your first just straight up psychic profile case?
I was standing in a apartment complex parking lot, and my good friend was the manager or curator of the place. So as we're conversing, and Greg had his back to AKA Jesse, who was about 30 yards behind him and walking into the entrance of the building, my eye was trained on Jesse because I seen a black shroud. When I see colors around people and energy, sometimes it comes in forms of like color, black.
Right.
And black is evil. Black is bad. Straight up. I mean, I've told suspects when I sat with them, with law enforcement, I said, I see everything black around you. You're soulless. You're bad.
Right.
And that's the best part about me working with United States law enforcement. They say, "Do you want to ask questions of these jerks?" And I say, "Yeah, I love that stuff. Fucking right, I do." So it's like I see this black shroud, and Greg's noticing this. And so he turns and looks over his shoulder and turns back and goes, "That's Jesse. You want to go talk with him?" I said, "Yeah," because I was inquisitive. I really wanted to know. Now I see this bad guy walking over here. What's going on? So we eventually make it up into his apartment. Greg is sitting over in a chair, and I'm sitting 2 feet from AKA Jesse. Now picture this: 5 foot nothing, identical Eddie Van Halen.
Okay.
I should have asked him for his autograph. I mean, seriously, that's what this guy looked like. I started getting into cop mode because I was going through to be a police officer in that time. Right? And my questions were like, "What do you do for a living?" And you know what I mean? And things like this. And then he goes, "Stand the fuck up." And okay, all right, am I going to get punched here? And I stood up, and he goes, "Are you fucking hot?" And then I'm not thinking, right? That don't make sense. And he lifts up my shirt, and then he starts feeling around my waist. And then I knew he was looking for a wire.
Yeah.
Right? So then his girlfriend, who was pregnant, starts going off the hook and telling him to shut up and leave me alone. And he turned around and he swatted her so hard. She went and cried in the alcove area of the dining room, kitchen, little L-shaped apartment.
Yep.
And he looks back at me and he goes, "Sit down." And he pushed me down. He goes, "You want to know how we killed him?" And that wasn't even my question.
Right.
And he goes, "We were ripping off a car stereo across the way. And then Thomas Cook, who's in jail, and there's 2 murders here. Thomas Cook wanted to go and rip off the gas station. Well, poor Mark Campbell moved from Quebec to Ontario with his family, 14 years of age, just a young gentleman. And he's working at this cubicle gas station for, I think back then they were working for like $1.50, $1.95 an hour. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nothing. So he's making a little cash to go to high school, right? Well, then these 2 suspects come over, and he goes, "We stood there and we popped him like this." And he was smiling, and he was going, and he was hopping like a rabbit. You should have seen it. We were popping him like that. And that's how we killed him. And then sitting there like this. By now, Greg is off that chair, and he's standing at the door, like going through the door threshold to go in the hallway. And he goes, "Get the fuck up." And he goes, "Get out of my apartment." So I get up, and he grabs my shoulder, and he goes, "If you tell anybody, I'll come kill you." Right? And so out the door I go, shuts the door. We ended up in Greg's apartment. I'm sure there was more verbiage that was said, but this is the key stuff I remember from back then, 32 years ago.
Right.
So we're now down in Greg's apartment, and his wife is just freaking livid, right? "Why'd you go up there? Why'd you start that shit? Why did you do this?" And then I said, "Well, now I got to go and tell the detectives. I have to go and tell them." So I ended up going down and talking to the detectives. They said, "Rob," now I did not know this. They said, "Rob, you have to go back and befriend him, put a wire on, and get him to say the same shit he just told you." I said, "You don't get it. He just told me he was going to kill me and felt me up for a wire." And they go, and at the time they didn't care because they had nothing on these 2, and they were in trial that week. So holy crap, you're throwing this all on me. And they go, "You got to do it. You got to do it." And I said, "No." And I remember the way they ran. And they told me they went down Phillip Street and back behind the old apartments. And I said, "You're probably going to find the gun somewhere over there." This is you know, it was a high profile case in my hometown.
Right.
I wrote about, let me show you. Wrote about it in my book.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, it's in my book. This book, I think, has about 12, 13 cases out of hundreds I picked that were from America, Canada, around, right? And yeah, great ratings. I love it. I'm showing off. But anyways, enough about that. But yeah, in the book, and them wanting me to go back, it was not right. I mean, I couldn't do it. So that was my first one. So here's a little tidbit for everybody out there who you think you're psychic and you think you got ability and you think you know you're going to jump into this shit and do what you got to do. I got 32 years of ducking bullets, knives, death threats, as you just heard.
Yeah.
And this was the very first one where I got in. I thought, you know, I'm peachy cream. I'm the guy. And no, I'm not. Biggest mistake in the world.
Yeah.
I do everything professionally. I only work through law enforcement via family because it's legit.
Right.
There's a lot of other things tied to that in the way I do my procedures that get results. But very good tidbit for everybody. I don't care who you are. Never put yourself in harm's way. That was the biggest idiot move I ever did. And you know what? I use that as an example, and I hope you never have to be an example if you ever want to do this, or you know.
You know what? You're talking to the wrong guy. I've been shot twice. I've been stabbed numerous times. You're talking to the wrong guy. So
Yeah.
So Jamie wants to know, is that book on Audible?
No, it's not. Here's what I did with this book. I have a bonus copy which has an extra 50 pages in it. You can only get it through my office, and it's signed by me. It took me years to get all the families to agree, law enforcement to come forward and put their credentials in this book. Their actual reports or testimonies are in this book, photos, everything. And there's not a book out there in the market at all. I've been approached by, I don't know, America's Most Wanted, Dog Bounty Hunters producers, Dog Beth producers. Yeah, so I mean, when they tell me there's nothing out there, they know. Yeah. And so the other book is 182 pages minus the 50, but it still has all the cases and many things in there. I take you from step one all through it. You see and hear and feel everything I have done with law enforcement, and you hear what they say, and then you get to see who's in jail and what happened to this guy. He killed himself, and yada yada yada, all down the line. Yeah, so the book is on Amazon or anywhere you can get in your bookstore, anywhere like that. But the bonus copy is only through my website. You can get a hold of me, and that's how we do it.
Sweet. Well, it looks like Jamie and Imani right here. Hi, Imani. Are both interested in getting a hold of it. So,
thank you.
Jamie's even said, fine, I'll have to read it. So, and Jamie's more of an Audible person, but if she's going to read a book, then she's very interested in it.
Yeah, you know, I'm sorry. You know, I'm going to jump in there for her. You know, I thought about putting it in Audible, and then I thought, no, you know why? Because I put my life into it, and you want to have what's in my brain actually on paper, the way I wrote it down, and I didn't change a word. So if something got fucked up in there, no, it's in there. You get prime time death scene information from law enforcement. Me, I mean, you got, I don't know, FBI, CIA. I mean, I've worked with them all, and it's, you know, you're going to see stuff in there. I mean, the highest ranking police officer in the world's right on the cover, and he was my partner. I don't know if you can read that, but I'll read it to you. He says, the arrests were made exactly how you said it would happen. It was amazing. And I don't endorse psychics at all, but Robbie Thomas is one I stand behind. I don't have my glasses on, sorry.
I figured that.
Yeah. Hey, I'm squinting.
I'm the same way. I'm like, what?
But he was international police chief.
Nice.
And he was a state capitol police officer, got promoted and went overseas to hunt down Milosevic. And so he got me on the baseline killers in Arizona. And there's a clip, I'm sure you've seen on my website, where he goes, that sentence he said, but he goes, I can't believe it. You told them exactly who it was, and they went back and they got those guys. So,
yeah. So I want to go back up to an earlier question that my wife threw out here. I marked it so I remembered it. She said, how hard was it to work alongside of law enforcement and have them trust your abilities? I would think that it would be hard because they wouldn't believe what you do. At least in my mind, many law enforcement would not believe in the spiritual world.
Right. And we'll give you a couple great examples. I take my wife on every death scene I go. So when the CIA agent's daughter went missing in Maryland, the DSA called and she called. And so they said, can you give some information on paper to be, viable that we can look at, that would be tangible? And if it's real, we'll talk more. Absolutely.
Sure.
So send me the photo. So they sent me the photo of the daughter. And I wrote everything down. I put down the road winding and the garbage. I described every detail, how long it was, how far it was from the murderer's home, all kinds of different aspects. Sent it to them, and it was not even, and this happens all the time. It happens all the time. No more than 5 minutes goes by and the phone rings again. And this time it was, okay, we're going to get you on the plane. You're coming to Ronald Reagan Airport.
Right.
So, okay. So we fly the wife and I down to Ronald Reagan Airport and get in there to the DSA's office. The FBI found the car washed in Virginia. Washed means bleached.
Right.
So if there's any blood, right? So he goes, suspect A, suspect B, and victim. So now I'm looking at two suspects, right? And I'm looking at that, and he goes, and here's a map of Virginia and Maryland. Find her. That's it. That's it. Other than the formality of, how you doing, how was your flight, and shit like that, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not mad at these folks because these folks, hats off to them. They do their job and they do to a T. But I'm mad at the situation and look at these two stupid guys that are suspects, and then I look over at the family and it tears me apart, right? And then I'm looking at the officers and they're just beside themselves, and the only thing I get to go on is, here's a map, find her. Right. So take us back to the hotel. I crack a beer, I take a big gulp, I put it down, I look at the map, I circle a tiny road on there. I did not even know the name of the road when I sent him the information. Right. So now I'm looking at the map, I circle a little road, throw it down. The wife goes to me, you're not done. I said, yeah, I'm done. She goes, Homer's going to be pissed off at you. And I said, no, I'm seriously, this is done. This is a lead into what we're doing. I'm done. I'm mad. I'm fucking fed up. Right. So we get down there the next morning. Homer looks at it and goes, I think he said a couple things. That was it, right? Because we had to say hello to everybody. He looked at the map, and then I remember him saying, get in the fucking car. So we get in the car. And we're driving around, and he's taking me to this part of Maryland. He goes, is this it? And they do this to me all the time, right? Because this is a great question your wife asked. And I told my wife before we left the building, I said, you're going to enjoy this little car ride. We're going to go on a little car ride, right? Because this is what it is, right? So we go there. No, it's not it, Homer. He drives way over here. And I go, no, it's not it, Homer. Went to another place, and then we met up with the other detectives some other place. And I go, no, you're looking in the wrong area. Homer goes, get out of my car. So I get out and leans up on the back of the car like this. He's just mad, right? He's staring. He goes, I don't know how you fucking do it. He goes, I'm an atheist and I don't believe in you. But he says, because you know everything that I know, and you couldn't have known anything on that road because I was looking at that road for 2 years. And how would you know that her phone pinged off the tower at Andrews Air Force Base and it's county over? He goes, that's why you're standing right here. And he goes, tell me how you did. And he was just going on and on and on and on like that. And I'm just staring at him and I go, it's spirit. It's spirit. And then we got on. This guy got moved. And I'm going to break off from the story a little bit just to go into, I love Homer. Yeah. His mom died, which made him atheist because he talked to God and said, save his mom. And
hated God for taking his mom.
17, right? Yep. And never did. So he just, but I see him doing the swing, and as long as he's comfortable with himself and knowing that there's more out there, then that's where we got to with Homer. Right. So anyways, getting back to the case, we go to that road, and then not only that, NSA came out. Now, I don't know any person who calls themselves, and I hate this. I hate the word psychic. The only reason I use that term or medium, it was coined by the police years and years and years ago. I'm spirit walker. I'm indigenous. I walk with spirit. I'm spiritual. So that has to be stopped. And the stupid thing here, I'm going to read it to you. The real deal. That was coined by law enforcement too. So they told me to keep it, and I did. And they call me the Rolodex or whatever. So all these little terms happen to be like a pun, and they stick to you, right? So anyways, yeah, we're back on the scene, and there's NSA. CIA agent was there. The DSA was there. Sheriff's office was there. And they're scouring around. In the rainy season, we kind of hit an area that he goes, okay, I'll tell you what, the dog team's going to cost a lot of money to bring the dogs in, because this case now, they washed their hands because there's a little dirty on this case about the daughter, and the mom didn't want to ruin her reputation to get on the stand to go after the guy because her daughter was. I hate saying this, and please, people, don't look down on people like this. Sometimes people fall down in life and they need a helping hand to get back up.
Yep.
But she became a night girl, and and got hooked on drugs, hard drugs. So, but that's just a disease that took over for her, right? So mom didn't want to do that, and there was like animosity and all that. So then they said, well, we wash our hands with it, and we're going to give it over to Homer, who's he's retiring really soon. So Homer devoted his whole freaking time on this case. And so we went that, and it was raining. So he says, I'm going to call the dog team out, and we're going to get pay for it and everything. So, okay. So a little bit of money that came out of his pocket, paid for all this, right? And don't forget, they're paying for me to come there, my wife.
Come down there, right.
Everything. Yep. So it's not cheap. And calling out NSA and everybody else. These are man hours. So they go along with the dogs that had a hit, but they couldn't dig because every time Homer was digging and it was raining, it was filling in the creek. So every time he dug, you couldn't get into there, right? So they said, okay, we're going to wait till spring to do this. And thank you, yada, yada. We'll take you back to the hotel room. Okay. I think this is like day 3. We get in the squad car, and then you hear on the radio, we know he's in town. Do you think he'll come up here? Can we borrow him? And right, and I'm thinking to myself, who knows I'm in town, right? Who knows? But they know everything. American police and the FBI and all that, they know everything. So, anyways, and I'm just a Canuck. But anyways, I look back in the squad car. My wife's, just 5 foot, and she's looking at me like funny, and I saying, well, you're the boss. And she says, yeah, you can still stay. And so they rush us off up to Washington, and 1986, there was a trailer here on land, and there's a trailer here on land, and it must have been 2 football fields in between. It's all farmland, and there's a creek, right? And the topography of the land, and I'm picturing everything. Well, the big biker guy, 1986, he shot, he stabbed, he had sex with the girl before she died, and then he stuffed her body into a red sleeping bag, and he buried her, right? So I get on scene. It looked like $1 million homes everywhere, because now we're up to 2017, and the set of ET. That's the way I can describe it. Or it was like diggers everywhere, and it was like a movie scene. And these cops are all distraught, and they're just like, "This is the last place we dug," and they showed me, and they said we didn't come up with anything. And I said, "Give me aerial photos. You got aerial photos?" And so the younger guy, John, the older guy who's been digging since 1991. This is 2017. This is how bad they want to keep this guy in jail, because he made a list. And then when they did a jail sweep, he had names of the other biker guys he was going to bump off that turned state's evidence against him. So they're trying. He's done his time. It's coming up. They want to keep him in, right?
Yeah.
No body. Done the time that he was charged with, so he wants to come out. So he runs over, gets the photographs, and I put it on the squad car, and I just turn and I go, okay, John, now look at the topography of the land. It's a little bit different here. And I said, there's a trailer and a trailer, and there's a huge well in the middle. But, and then he stops me and he goes, you know what? You're on my death scene. He goes, you tell me one thing, and I'll let you stay here. I don't know, maybe I was rambling to him. I don't know. I was just getting to the point, right? And so I look over at Homer and I go, wait a minute, you just dragged my ass from Maryland all the way over here to Washington. And Homer's going, just tell him. I said, okay. And I said, well, I see you're buried, but it's something big, like a tank on top of her. And he hugged me and he called me brother. And he goes, no one knew that. Nobody outside the police circle here knew, because they had a video of what he said he was going to do, put her under a tank. And he ripped the patches off his arms. And I always display those. I'll show you. I'll send you pictures of them. And yeah, and he hands them to my wife and he goes, point. So I said, well, where's the sister's trailer? Over there. And the young guy, he takes off, right? So he's taking off, running over towards the sister's trailer. And I get over there with John eventually, because John's an older fella. And I'm looking at an area where it had like 3-foot iron fence, but it was like 15 feet by 15 feet square, 15, 15, 15, 15. And it had vegetation all inside, and then it had a tree right in the middle. And in the tree in the middle, the ground went like this, and then the tree. And I said to John, what happens to a tank, like a shit tank, a septic tank?
Right.
Over time. He goes, well, it would corrode. And so he said, it would corrode. And he looked over at the hole in the ground, and he goes, point. And I point, and he goes, do it again. And then he looks at the lady in the window, and it was the only spot they never dug. And that whole freaking entire area. And the lady in the window, sweet old elderly lady, and she's shaking her head no. She wanted her yard dug up, right?
Right.
So John, I pointed again. He goes, that's so feasible because it's a tank. It would be right there where that was. Her trailer would be here, and they got the schematics out. They're looking at everything, and yeah, it would have been right there. And so he goes, now we need a warrant. So he goes, everybody's thanking me and everything. So now we're leaving, back to the other case, and then get into the hotel room. Now we're leaving, like leaving.
Right.
The FBI show up, and my wife and I are in the bar, and 2 guys show up, and the guy goes, no, he ain't drinking this. He ain't drinking this here. He's drinking this. And he brought in a case of German wine from Germany. And I've never tasted wine like that in my life. It was the greatest wine. And it was like a thank you. And we were drinking wine and talking and had a ball. It was just them and my wife and the bartender. It was the great, like the area was closed. It was great.
Yeah.
Got photos, and these my safe keeps, you know. And
right.
So we get home. No sooner we get home, a year to the very day, phone rings. And I stayed in touch with the CIA and Homer and everybody else. And she goes, Robbie, you found her. You were right. She was wrapped in a blanket 100 feet from the road. But they got to do dental because she's so decayed. And she was so happy, and I was happy for her. And then we waited for the dental records. I don't know, must have been about a couple weeks or a month go by, and then got a phone call. She goes, no, Robbie, you didn't find her. You found somebody else's baby that was murdered that they were looking for. So I did 3 cases. Trip there. So yeah, getting back to your wife's question about them not believing in you. Homer, I kept all his Texas, that's not even how you say it.
Text,
yeah. I'm not an author. I just pretend to be.
What's hard?
Right. So he said, you know, I'll work with you anytime. Right. So that's the nice thing to see. Right. Tommy Vantosi. I mention names because it's all true, and that's why it's out there. People can Google whatever.
Yeah.
Tommy Vantosi used to work with the Doe Network, and he's still a good buddy of mine. Been a great buddy of mine for I don't know how many years. His brother-in-law's daughter murdered. Mount Rainier. So he sends me a photo. I do my composite sketch of the guy that I see, the happening, the traveling, everything, right? And Detective Morissette, Tommy got a hold of him, and he talks to me. He goes, again, if anything's good, we'll call you in a few minutes. If not, it's going in G, garbage, right? So, okay. So I did few minutes go by, phone rings, and it's never pleasant the first few minutes on the phone. Never. It's like, what the fuck? Who would have told you this shit?
All of a sudden, you're a suspect.
Yeah, right. And how much did Tommy tell you? And I said, look, I'm in Canada. Tommy didn't tell me nothing. He sent me a photograph, and Tommy's an upstanding guy, like works with law and all that. So he knows better to tell me anything, right?
Right.
So Morissette kind of cools down, and he goes, I got a guy in jail right now that's just like that. Well, go back about this happened with Tommy a few years. I'm gonna guess, okay. And if Tommy watches the show, I'm sorry if I got the timeline wrong. 10 years. 10 years. The father, and I promised him we would get the guy, no matter what, right? Because he was dying of cancer, and hopefully you would get him before he passed away. So 6 months ago, Tommy posted, "They got the guy," right? And it's the exact same African American guy you drew that did that, and it was like, yeah, case done.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter how long. You know how law enforcement has that thing, a stipulation where murder has no timeline.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Right. Yeah. Same thing with the spirit world. There's no timeline. It takes time. It'll get you.
Yeah. So I want to ask, because you're talking about how you do all these cases and everything else. What do you see? Do you see the actual no shit real life, like as it would appear to us, or do you just get like symbols and messages and stuff like that to identify what you're looking at and the place you're looking at? I mean, how does it come to you visually? Is it like you're looking at a picture and you're like you said, someone will send you a picture or someone sends you a map or anything else, and when you get the information, you're just like, well, it's right here on this map. But how do you know? Do your guides talk to you? Do they send you images themselves, or do they just like give you symbols and you have to kind of interpret them for what they mean?
Right. I'm going to reach behind me for a second.
Okay.
This is a talking stick, Native American talking stick. We normally put a totem up top, right? We bound it with hawk, eagle feathers. And then when the person holds this, it's their turn to talk.
Right.
And respect, everybody else sits and listens. In our native cultures, it would be where you and I would sit around as a buddy, right? And then family, and then pass you this, you tell me how your day was and what was good and bad about it. And then the next person would do the same. And then we'd take turns, and it was a comforting thing, right?
Right.
Well, that's how it is with me with spirit. Example would be, I'm sitting in my living room, and I said to my wife, there's a young girl going to go missing. She's going to be about 8 years old. She's blonde. I watch her walk into the tree line. There's a pile of rocks and rubble and wood. And then I see horse and buggy and Mennonites and Gulch. But the area was actually called Guelph. I got a couple letters wrong. So I do all my drawings and everything and what have you. And then I go and show the probe to show how legitimate this is. I have certain people I give to who are in the media, and then they on my website. I don't know if you listen to the clip. The guy goes, "Yeah, I remember you showed me all that." It was the program director for 99.9 FM, the Fox, and he goes, "Before they started investigating this case, you showed me it all, and it all came true." And then the family got in touch, and I went down there and I sat with Detective Brown, showed my notes, guy, girl. And at the time they were just looking for a girl that led her away from the school. So when I see things like this, it's, to you, I can describe it as a movie.
Right. And that's what I was going to ask. Is it?
Yeah. To you, it'd be called a movie. To me, it's real life. It's like I'm sitting there seeing it all.
So it's like a remote view, but.
Right.
Right. Okay.
Exactly. Officer DeLay pulled me on his radio show one day, racing cars. I know nothing about racing cars. I just drive a Harley. Ride a Harley.
Correct.
So yeah, I thought, okay, this will be different swing, and then we'll talk about cars. And he blindsided me. And you think I would have known better. But anyways, he goes, double homicide, pick up on it, Rob, yada, 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 yada. And I said, okay. And I said, 3 guys involved. This is how it happened. Next thing after the show, he goes, stay tuned. The family's listening. And they did. And they said, we're flying you down. So I'll get down to Kentucky. I seen how it happened. They were looking for the murder weapon, right? And then they couldn't never find it. And I'm on scene with Andy. And I said, Andy, I see this, like that, but behind something. And it's right here still. It's still right here, right? Nobody checked the shed, right? Behind a table. Mm-hmm. Well, after we get home, the daughters went and took a look behind that. And there it was with blood still on it, the DNA, and it's still there. So they have that.
Right.
The one kid who committed suicide gave a deathbed confession. I told him exactly what he did. Suspect number 3, the weakest link, that's who I got to come talk to us. And I was holding the microphone or the tape under his chin, and Andy was playing bad cop, good cop. And he kept referring to me as Mr. FBI guy. And so Andy, what can we do, Rob? So we're in the boardroom. And I said, let me depict him before, during, and after. Mm-hmm. And he goes, okay. So I said, I could see everything he did. Put it all down. Put everything during, before, during, and after. And then so Andy's doing the tough role. I'm doing the guy who's not supposed to say a word. And then Andy goes, fuck it. He goes, you want to ask him questions? And I was just like, wait a minute. I'm just trying to get the kid to confess what, through you, right? And then he goes, just a minute. He goes to the back of the SUV, opens it up, brings out the Bristol board that I wrote everything on, slams it on the back of the SUV, and he goes, read that, because he just said everything about you right there. The kid he turned white, right? And then he goes, I'll tell you everything. I just don't want to go to jail for life. I'll tell you everything. So we got the confession from him, right? So seeing things, it's like, yeah, I'll get visual. I'll get things come real quick. Pope Francis, when they were just made him Pope, mm-hmm. And my wife's Catholic. So when they were making him Pope, she likes watching that stuff on TV, right? And as they are coming to give him a name, I'm walking through. I remember my 2 daughters watching and my wife, and they're saying, it's going to be John. It's going to be like old names, Nicholas and whatever, right? And I walked through with a sandwich or something, and I said, no, it's Francis. And I walked right by, and sure enough, they announced it was Francis. And, how are you doing that? It just, it happens like that easy at times. Getting murderers' names, it comes out like that, like another case in Kentucky, where the weapon is, where the body is.
Yeah.
And what's great about it is, a lot of folks sit there and go, I can't fathom that. I just can't wrap my wires around that. But to be there on a death scene, like my wife has often said, I become a totally different individual. I just hone in, and I get cold to everything, but I hone in on the purpose.
Right.
And because there's a perspective here, and we got to do it right. I do everything over those years. I've learned how to become professional in what I do. So I look at it as it's a career. It's a job, if you will. I'm just giving you titles. Yeah. But what it mostly is, it's for the families.
Yeah.
And it has to be. And that's what I devoted. I talked to Creator, and I talked to my mom. I talked to their family members, and I say, okay, we're in a tough one right now, and I'm not pulling no shit here. I need some help. It's like that. We'll go to that case in Kentucky now. Ivan Cano, 4-year-old little beautiful boy, angel boy, went missing. So the liaison in Kentucky calls me on Canada Day, or the day before Canada Day, something like that, and sends me a photograph. That's all I had, and his name. And so I'm channeling spirits to help. So I'm getting stadium lights off, and I draw off, and I put John underneath it. And if you stood on the murderer's front porch and you looked through the little tree clearing across the road, Papa John Stadium was right there. Flags and vests. Well, they were doing construction right in front of his house the day he went missing, with the orange flags poked in, and apparently he went and pulled them out, and the guy seen that and called him in the house. I said repeat offender of 2 young boys. Well, he was a repeat sexual offender of 2 young boys until he murdered this little boy. So I going on and on and on, get all this stuff written down and drawn up, and very keynote stuff for the law enforcement in Louisville. And there's a break. It was like being in a vacuum. Like when we're talking, and all of a sudden you shut the door on me and you leave. We don't leave in good terms. It's just like being sucked out. And I was pissed. And I was like, I was throwing things in my room. I was mad. I mean, there it was. I was getting everything I could get. I got the pressure. The phone's going off the hook. And then all of a sudden I said, fuck it. Just give me his name. And then the boy first came back. When the boy came back, then I knew he was dead. He was murdered. Right. I was getting spirits, but now I got the boy.
Right.
And I'm drawing this perp. And if you look at, it's on my website, by the way, the picture of the perp and the 4-year-old mindset. He made me draw this guy, the pointed ears. It's identical if you look at it. So I said, give me his name, give me his name. And sure enough, he did. Give me Cecil. And I wrote Cecil, and I put an arrow down to the monster's head. And so I got all that information. I faxed it off. I faxed it to NBC, ABC in Kentucky, the liaison and the detective. And sure enough, and he went on the lam, because he went and knocked on his door and said, did you see the kid here? And that was the wrong mistake. They shouldn't have done that. They should have just busted in. Right? So then I said, I seen a white truck or white vehicle, and it's dark inside. Right? Well, the garbage trucks at the time were white, and they're dark inside the trash area. Right?
Yeah.
Well, that's where his body was in the trash. So I gave him all the specifics. Right? They ended up catching him December of 2007, and he went to trial. And I remember the clip in the news saying the Louisville police got a huge tip, and we got the guy, and yada 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 yada. And yeah, he's in jail, and he'll never see the light of day ever again.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's a good one. Yeah, justice for the kid.
Yes.
Have you? Got to ask a negative question.
Yep.
Have you ever came across one where you're like, I'm just not picking up on it. I can't help you.
No.
But I guess
that's a great question. It's a great question because I have to filter me. I have to be human first.
Right.
I have to be true to me first. If I'm not true, I'm going to give you a couple examples where people screwed up on cases and I had to come back in and fix them and find the people. One was a very well-known individual on TV now, and everybody knows him in the paranormal. So he said he's dead. He's shot in a hotel, and we do not know where he is. This is what he's saying. So Hamilton County, Florida, law enforcement and this prominent show get a hold of me. And they said the producer's missing, yada, 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 said, shot dead. And I said, nope, he's alive. He'll call you in 3 days, and he's pissed you passed him up for promotion, and he's in Oklahoma, right? The letters on my website, people can read it, where all these notes and stuff are there. It's all factual. They said, Robbie, you're an angel. You're right. He called his mom in 3 days afterwards. He's not dead, yada, 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 yada. So when you say, am I ever, don't get anything, I think sometimes people who think they are, or I don't know, I'm trying to word the verbiage right, so I want to piss people off, but maybe they try too hard. Maybe they're pushing too much. I don't know. Should be natural. Should
Right.
be very natural. There's a case right now, boy missing out in Canada here. And they called the psychic in New York, and she said, the boy's in the cheese factory there. And she must have Googled, because I guarantee she did not know there was a cheese factory there. So the cops went and they tore up this poor guy's business, literally, and fucking made a mess, right? Digging and all this in his factory. No boy. So they got a hold of me, and I said my piece. I spoke to the detectives. They know exactly what it's all happened, what's going on. You have to let the blue line do their work.
Yep.
I'm only a tool. I can only do what I can, but it's far-fetched from everybody else what they've been saying where he was and everything, right? So then, father, I could see his plight. I could see the hurt in him and what's going on and why it's so aimed at a certain individual. But my hands are tied because now he's done so much harm. And here's a good thing. I wrote a chapter in the book called The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. It's about people who do the wrong shit because they think they're doing, but they're stepping on toes. And anybody who's listening to your podcast tonight, if you have a beautiful family member that's missing, hurt, gone, murdered, first of all, God bless you, and I'm sorry. But this is the key thing. You have to let the professionals do their job and do not be a hindrance. And people say, well, I'm not being a hindrance. I'm just trying to look for my child and do this and that. But sometimes they get so focused, mono-focused on that particular, which is okay. But they don't see the toes they step on. And this guy was stepping on many toes, going on YouTube and making videos, calling them out and calling bad names in the media. So the police go, fuck you.
Yeah.
Right? Because you've done so much harm. So then now it's gotten from going to being good karma to bad karma. I was filmed by America's Most Wanted film crew and the boys from Toronto, Lamport and Shepherd. They had a show on TV called Rescue Mediums. And International Police Chief Kevin Smith, after doing the Baseline Killers, and I said, would you partner up with me? Like I'm just being polite. And he goes, yeah, I'll do a case with you. I said, oh, right on.
Yeah.
So Loretta Lynn called me one year, and I talked to Loretta on the phone for about an hour and a half. And this happens to be down in Butcher's Holler. It's supposed to be a distant relative of Loretta Lynn.
Right.
So I get down there. Now, nothing to do with her. It's the other people that are involved, distant family members. We're filming. We have it all sized up. Exactly what happened, who did what. The case is right there. I mean, it just took, I gotta tell you, just and you would get them, right?
Right.
Oh, my words are not coming out because I'm reflecting back the year before or 2 years before that. The headlines read, Psychic says case investigated improperly. And I was down there by myself, and I had the water cop, I had the coroner, I had the incoming sheriff, lady taking minutes, all professional. Like I said, I do everything to the T, right? Keep records. And things go bad sometimes when people want to push too hard.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, this sweet mom, it irks me so much, but I want it on A&E tomorrow. I want to, that type of thing, right?
Right.
Well, production isn't done like that. It takes time for them to put it together, and then it goes on, and you have to make the arrest and everything, and then later on, it'll be on TV. Well, that's what blew it. So, I mean, there's fine line, truth, and then what people on the outside, like yourself, say, they don't know what goes on in these cases. The good, the bad, and the ugly. There's a lot that go on in these cases.
Right. Have you been asked, I know this is probably pretty close to home, but I'm going to ask anyways. Have you been asked to look into indigenous children who have been taken from reservations, mostly girls, I know. But, because I know, like the reservations here, there's a lot of kids that end up going missing that are never found off the reservations.
Yep.
So have you been asked to participate in some of those?
Yep.
Okay.
This will probably sour in your mouth, in your heart. I mean, sorry. Missing girl in Manitoba. I get a call from mom and sister. Talk to the corporal of the RCMP. And we know what the RCMP did a long time ago to indigenous children. They took them away.
Right.
And what they did. And being frank about it, they really don't give a shit. That's seriousness. But anyways, because it burns here because they did it to my family. Right.
So I want to explain to people, RCMP is Royal Canadian Mounted Police. A lot of people don't know what the acronym is, so that way they have an understanding of who you're talking about and stuff like that. So
yeah, okay. Sorry.
That's all right.
So I talked to the corporal investigator, be like a detective in the States, and they said, we like your information, but we have a protocol. We can't speak to psychics like this open channel, but we'll go backdoor with mom and sister. I'm thinking, wow. You know what I mean, right? What I'm getting at, right? Well, you son of a bitch. You know what I mean? Like, that's bullshit. And so I talked to the mom, and the mom's livid. I said, what we need to do is, they ain't got no money. They can't get me down there. I mean, it costs a lot of money to do these things. I go away for a week and stuff like this. It costs money. So I do what I can do. Video. I need the area because I said she's taken sex slave, and this is how it's going. Lost communication. Came back, got communicating again with the mom. RCMP want nothing to do with it. They won't do anything like this, especially out west. It's like a epidemic out there. They don't care. I'm being very frank, and I work with a lot of cops. Yeah. I have a lot of cops that are my friends, and they'll be frank and say the same thing. One boy went missing Christmas Eve, and I got the call. Now, the aunt, her husband's a police officer on the reserve. His jurisdiction is reserve only. So this is outside in the town. I go to the town, and I'm with my wife, and I'm driving, and I want to pull the car over so I can get a better look on the phone at the picture of the house they sent me.
Right.
I pull the car around. I park it like this. I'm looking this way. I got the phone in my hand. My wife's looking at it. My wife hits me on the shoulder, and she goes, look. I look up, and the house is on the phone is right directly in front of me. I'm going, oh, for frick's sakes, that's going to look good. They're going to be staring out at us. They're going to know. Thanks, Spirit. You brought me right to the freaking house.
Right.
I would have never known. So I get out, pull the car down the street, and then I asked the mail lady, I said, I need to look for a dock and water. And she goes, well, you just go down the street a little bit, you turn right and an immediate left, and you'll see the dock and the water's right there. So, okay. So me and the wife drive down. I go out the car, and again, I point to the water, and I come in the car, and she goes, "You done?" I said, "Yeah, he's in the water. He's right there." So on YouTube, the OPP, which is the Ontario Provincial Police, I did the acronym for you. They showed up afterwards and put a drone in the sky and divers in the water. And the drone was a heat-seeking camera, but this was well after he was dead, so there's going to be no heat.
Right. You're not going to get a return. Right.
No. Divers get in there, the water's murky, and they just missed them. Come spring, 1,000 feet down, there's a slow current in that that river, right? The Sydenham River. Very, very slow current. he popped up 1,000 feet from where I said he was because the gas is in the spring.
Right.
But prior to that, let's go back now. Mom, from the reserve, she says to me, and we know Indigenous people, you can't sugarcoat anything.
Oh, yeah.
You tell like anybody. We tell anybody, right?
Yep.
And she was like very stern. She goes, Robbie, you just tell me. Is he alive or is he dead? And oh my gosh, and my heart breaks, and I'm going, oh God, why would you ask me that? Going through my head, and I told her, he's not here no more. He's in the spirit world. She's screaming and crying and mad at me, and I didn't want to be the bearer of giving bad news, and never want to be that way. I don't want to be that guy.
Right.
So I'm leaving, and Deanna, she's from the reserve. She's on my social media, and first person I could think of who I could talk to, that's on the reserve near me, is Deanna. And I said, the weirdest thing, Deanna, was, and I know it was him. Every freaking pole on the way out of Wallaceburg, and I'm telling you, like maybe 20, 30 poles had a hawk on it, and they're all facing the same way as I was driving out. And my wife and I were looking and going, that's strange. They don't gather like that.
Right.
Like, like that. And then so she says, Robbie, that was him showing you the way home that you were right. And I was like, you know what? You're right. That was him.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's really cool. Yeah. Yeah. So I mentioned earlier that William Nighthawk is on here, and he's Native American as well. And he's one of those that is very outspoken about the girls who are taken, or who basically disappear from the reservation. And it's a great thing he does to bring that to attention, because everyday Joe Schmo people don't know. They don't know what happens on or off reservation, because it's not talked about, especially down here in the States. It's not talked about. It's very much hush hush and blocked out and everything else. So there's a lot of that missing that even I feel, I especially feel needs to be brought to light more than it is.
Yes.
So it's the same thing. So I also have a friend who lives up in Canada. She's an Indigenous person. And she kind of gave me my history lesson, because I'll tell you the truth. I know about a lot of countries, but Canada's kind of quiet to me, so I really don't research Canada. But I made the mistake of one time of wishing her a happy holiday. I don't remember what it was, but she's like, that is not my holiday. And I was like, uh-oh. And so she gave me a history lesson, and I was like, ooh, my bad. And so we had that discussion. So there's a lot of stuff that, even down here in the States, there's a lot of people that don't understand what's going on up in Canada right now.
Yeah.
As far as what's going on just with the Indigenous personnel and trying to get the recognition back and the land back and everything else and all this other stuff that's going on. There's a lot of people here that have no clue that that's going on.
Well, let's give a little background. I'll start off with Deanna one more time.
Sure.
This case just recent. It's just poor Deanna. She was in her house, and her granddaughter shows up and gives her a hug and says she's going camping for the weekend. And Deanna thought, that's strange, because the girl never do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so she looked out the window and seen this Porsche, kind of like I want to say like an SUV, Porsche SUV type car, right?
Porsche Cayenne, Porsche Cayenne.
Yeah. And there's other kids in the car, and so the news hit all around here. And it was an Asian guy. He was a student on a visa over here, and he was with the sex slave trade. And he took Deanna's granddaughter and other kids to Toronto. He gave them new phones, threw their old phones out, gave them new clothing, moved them around from house to house, got them all on drugs, a lot of bad stuff.
Right.
And one of them somehow got out texted, and thank God they got them in Toronto, and that freaking guy's in jail, and no harm done to the kids. That's a good story, I can tell
Yeah.
you. What goes on in Canada here, about the schools you're talking about, the residential schools.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. My mother, my uncle, who's my elder, last living elder, he talks very little about this to me because he tries to block it out and it hurts too much. And I could see it in his soul. And my fire burns big in my belly for the colonialists and for the um, Catholic and all those other churches that took part, the Presbyterian, United, you name it. There's lots of them.
Oh yeah.
Um, they took my mother's baby, like I explained to you.
Mm-hmm.
They tortured my mother. They did things to her I don't want to talk about. My uncle, he said there was a wire fence, and the girls were on the one side and the guys were on this side. And he said, every day, Robbie, I go and hold your mom's hand, and she would say to me, "No, no worry, we go home soon. We go home soon." And then the nuns would come out and smack their hands, not to touch each other. And then they said they sodomized my uncle Doug, and they didn't feed them and starved them, and the scars are there. And my grandparents, and it goes on beyond that because I'm Algonquin, I have Iroquois, Algonquin, and I'm Métis, um, and Abenaki. It's hard to talk about because and all our Indigenous brothers and sisters who are listening, and I can tell it's, our stories are about our people.
Mm-hmm.
It truly hurts because the apology that man came over and gave, it still does not sit well with me because there's so much more of the doctrine of discovery has to be thrown out. That gave, they can enslave us, they could take our land, they can kill us. That's what that was. And
Right.
they drew it up, and the government, the colonialist government, adopted it, and that became law. They stole artifacts that are still over there that are our people's. Why don't they pick up a shovel and help bring our babies home? Why don't they come? That's an apology. Give over the people who are still alive for trial. Come dig up our relatives. Help us bury them,
Mm-hmm.
and do the right thing. That's an apology.
Right. Yeah.
Not words don't mean nothing.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And Jamie wrote up here too. She's I knew the girls about the missing girls, but that's about all. She didn't really know how she knew about that, but she must have watched it somewhere. But yeah, there's just so much of it that's still ongoing that so many people don't know about. But yeah, I mean, it was brought to light by me thanks to, like I said, to my friend up in Canada. She brought it to my attention, and then also William Nighthawk brought the attention to what was going on to me here in the States. So I'm lucky enough that I have contacts that I can ask questions to and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
But yeah, so I didn't want to take that away from what we were talking about, but I thought that was important to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Mr. Nighthawk will get a real good warm in his heart when I tell him this. They've been after me for years to do a TV series, working with law enforcement to hunt down these sick people. Before COVID, I signed a contract, and a week later the COVID hit, so it nullified. I couldn't even get to the States. I mean, we couldn't even leave our houses.
Yeah.
About a month and a half ago, I signed a contract, and my partner is a chief of police from Texas, and she's got Native American in her. She's done child trafficking. She's got a huge background. I got other officers from Florida, Colorado, I've done cases with, and I'm making this priority number one with my life for my people. And I'm going to, as soon as we get this going, I know the show has to appease. Now, please, when I speak like this, don't people get mad and go, oh, but the show has to appease the viewership,
Right.
as we know. So we're going to be doing all people's cases.
Yep.
But I am going to make sure I come, and if I have to go to, say, Omaha or Texas, I want to be on the reservation speaking to the elders. I want to help as much as I can. I only got so much. I've done this for 32 years, and I only got so much left in me. And whatever creator wants, right? I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So this is what I promised to people, and I keep my promises. I always do.
Yeah. And my wife is saying that's amazing. I'm glad to getting it going again. It's so important. So yeah. Yep. It's outstanding. Well, I'm leaving it up to you, buddy. I mean, we can either call it a night, or you can. I know you got tons of stories.
I know. Well, here, please.
Yeah, you know what? And again, this is why I bring you on. This is why I bring people on, because I want you to share stuff. Like, I want you to share your books. I want you to share your stories. I want you to share the films you were on, or that you were
let's talk about those.
asked for, or you know, and that stuff. And that's the stuff I want you guys to share, because I want everybody to know what you do and what you're doing and how you do it and everything else. And I mean, we've touched on a lot of stuff, but there's a ton of movies out there that you participated in or gave instruction on, or anything else that we haven't even talked about. So
yeah. Okay, we're going to sit here and talk about that. I promise you. A little show and tell. So I also take time. Yes, I do. And I do this. It takes me time, and I think about creator, and I sit with creator, and I carve out all our cousins. Right?
Very nice. Yep.
On here. So anybody's hunting, fishing, right? I do a lot of fishing. I love fishing, right? So I that's what I do when I got my, I guess you would call it, Tom, downtime, because I need to focus.
Yeah, it's
I need
me time.
Yeah, I need to ground me. So my wife goes, she even tells me at times, go get on your bike and go for a ride. So I get on the Harley and I just go for wherever. Yeah. Right. And I just feel the air, and when I see a hawk in the sky, and you know, it just makes me feel good. You know, just that's me. That's me. Yeah. Movies. I'm in a series right now, TV series. It's called Halloween Obsessed. It's on Amazon Prime and Tubi TV. So if you don't have Amazon Prime, you can go to Tubi TV and watch it. Halloween Obsessed. Mm-hmm. Now, the actors that are in that is Michael Gross from Family Ties, Tremors, LA Law. She's going to kill me. Dee Wallace. She's from like Cujo, Critters, Halloween, E.T., Ray Davis, Linda Palmer. There's a Scream Queen from the horror movie. She's on there. The list goes on and on and on and on. And yours truly. And I'm just flattered she asked me. I mean, I used to do her radio show out of LA, and it was fun to go on there for like 15 minutes and just shoot the shit and talk about cases, and off I'd go, right? But then she called me, she says, we want to film 2 segments with you. And so we did, and I ended up getting the producer credit for it because I had to produce it. As COVID was here, we got a film crew here, and it was amazing. And I talk about one episode, I talk about being in the belly of a live volcano. It's the largest European volcanic cap in Europe. It's on an island, the bubbling sulfur pits, and there's a lagoon down there. And the lagoon's about 3 football field that way, this way, and that way, right? And there's a pirate boat, like a rowboat. So back in 1700s, I guess, 1600s, when the tide would go down, there'd be a hole in the mountain. So they rowed in, tide go up, they couldn't get out, got trapped, and they died. And they died from asphyxiation from the fumes too, right? Right. And so we're down there filming, went there in 1994. That's the first discovery. And then I went there in 2010, 15, and just 2 years ago, 19, just before COVID. Yeah, we were down there last time. And for all those years, it's 300 feet straight down in a spiral staircase they made from like back in the, I don't know, pirate days, right?
Right.
So we're down there and it's so ominous, but it's majestic because I'm in the belly of a live volcano.
Right.
And I'm thinking, I'm dead.
Yeah, right.
I'm dead, right? But looking at everything is so beautiful. And then there's cameras they put down there for years, been down there, and the part of the ceiling let go. And as it crashed in the water, it sounded like it happened like right here, right? So the young people make it all the way up. And of course, the old people that are filming and shit with us, just halfway, we're all dying up the stairs. It was comical. And then we get up there and they go, that has never happened ever, that the ceiling ever let go like that. It was like, holy crap. That was something else. But yeah, so we talk about stuff, a little bit more about spirits and what I felt that are down there in one of my episodes. And then the Sally House movie, I talk about it. We did that in 2007. 2006, 2005, I did Dead Whisper. I came off the Natalie Holloway case in Aruba. And we were to fly out. The authorities were waiting. The CEO of BBC Radio and other people and the director of Dead Whisper, Christopher O'Brien, who was on Ancient Aliens on TV now. He was behind the camera at the time filming me. And well, they said, don't come here because everybody and their grandmother's combing the island. Their economy is falling. Hold back. So we did. And then Ron said, what do you want to do? And I said, let's go to Chicago and film Ghost and Legends. That was the name of the movie to start with. And then it ended up being Dead Whisper. He says, well, okay, you recruit the people you want to make it legitimate. It's okay. So I interviewed many people across America. And I talked to this one fella. He was in the PSYOPs in the American Army in Iraq, double agent. And he's also graduate of Purdue. Everything about frequencies and stuff. He's right up there. So I said, you know what? You're going to make me look good. Because he's a scientist, right? Right. You're going to prove me wrong, right? So anyway, we became good friends. And he got on there, and I recruited Indiana Ghost Trackers, and I got them on there and some other people. We filmed at Al Capone Speakeasy in Willowbrook, right across from Willowbrook Ballroom. The gentleman who owned it at the time, he's the chief of fire on Chicago Fire TV show right now, Don Kress. He owned that at the time. He's still a good friend of mine. We filmed at Mantino State Asylum in Illinois. Now, that's where they first invented Thorazine in America. It was rampant, where they took single moms and vagrants and anybody they could and put them into these lunatic bins and experimented on everybody, even if they were sane. So what they did was they took and bound Jeannie, dipped her in boiling water, and put her into cold water to see the shock effect and what it would do to the body. That's the experiments they did back then. Crazy that. And, you know, we filmed there, and then we filmed at, the Studebaker Mansion. We were the only people to be able to get into the Studebaker Mansion. They will never let anybody in there ever again. It's not that we were bad. It's that the curator was with us, and we uncovered secrets that nobody knew. And he goes, that's it. No one's coming in here ever again. Yeah, so that was 2005. 2006, I was supposed to go to the Sally House, and I was visited by Spirit, and she said, do not go. This is what's going to happen. And in repetitive form, showed me what was going to happen. Like I told you, the horseman showed me. Yeah, she showed me. I called the director up, and I said, I'm not getting on that plane. I'm not coming. Oh, he was mad. He was, you come to your paid and everything's done, and you come. I said, I'm not coming down. This is it. This is what's going to happen. So they started filming on a Friday. It was supposed to go Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, but it ended up going Friday, Saturday, cut, done. And he left a message on my answer machine. He goes, "Okay, Mr. Psychic, you were right." And then the other guys called me up and they go, "How did you know that he was going to fight him and you were going to do this and that?" And I was like, I think Amy Allen was there, and there
Now
was
he's mad that you're right.
yeah, right. So, but this is the rub. And then this is really cool. So I'm on tour throughout the United States doing the Power of Spirit tour. I went to New Orleans, and right after Katrina, a few years later, and it was still devastated, and they put on a benefit. So I was down there with one of the guys from the Google Dolls and an actor buddy of mine in my town. We raised so much money for all the folks down there, and we stayed at the Haunted Hilton, and everybody whose home had X's on it, like 2 Dead and 3X and people in the streets. I was passing out 50s and 100s, and so was everybody else. We raised all the money so they can get food. And it was so warming, right? So I'm coming home now. Michael goes, "Why don't you stop in Atchison, Kansas?" And I said, "Yeah, you know what? I got some time." And he goes, "I'll give you a free tour of the Sally House." I said, "Okay." So we get up in Atchison. We're sitting. It was like around midnight on the front deck. And then Michael goes to me, "Hey, you ain't going to believe this. This is the very day to the year you were supposed to be here last year to film this movie." And I'm like, "Are you shitting me?" And he goes, "No." And I go, "Oh my gosh, you're right." And so, and then all of a sudden the phone rings out of nowhere, and it's a producer who did the Montezuma Treasures. And he goes, "I know you're in town." Like I say, dude, they know, right? I don't know. People laugh a lot. So he goes, "I want to make a 5-minute commercial for the town. Will you do it?" I said, "I'll do anything." So we ended up shooting the whole week and making a movie, The Sally House. It has something like 4 million views on YouTube, 4 million views on UFO TV. It's been on Discovery Channel about 4 or 5 times. Yeah. And it's a cult classic. It was,
yeah. That's outstanding. That's really cool. I do want to put this back up. This is kind of reaching back to what we were talking about earlier when you were talking about indigenous people. Joe, the Hawaiian, says, "Fascinating listening. As a native Hawaiian, I could feel what you said about making things right down to my bones." So, yep. So same thing. Yep. Cool.
Yep. We know Momoa, Jason.
Yes.
And he belongs to Red Rum. And it's a indigenous First Nations bike gang, right? I'm not saying I'm not in the club. Okay? I got a pin and a patch they sent me, right? So I'm waiting for my TV and everything to go, and I'm hoping that I can become sponsored into it somehow, because they do all good for people,
right?
And that's the only reason I would be with Cliff, who's the president, and do that. It's not the Hells Angels. These guys are angels, period.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to it, and I get excited about those guys. They do so much good work. Yeah, they do good work.
Very cool. Yeah, that's and that's. I used to ride bike all the time too. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a. In fact, I was just telling my wife today, because we're moving further away from my work, I might have to put myself back on a bike to get to and from work again, instead of driving my truck, just the way gas is going.
Oh yeah, I know.
But yeah, out here, especially in the Midwest, I know they're everywhere, but you really recognize them out here. They have a lot of veteran groups. I don't want to call them gangs, but veteran biker groups that go around and kind of the same thing Joe's talking about here. They're talking about Toys for Tots, stuff like that, and everything else. Yeah, that's a lot of them do that here, or they'll do just they'll do poker runs to raise money and stuff like that.
Right.
They do a lot of the big stuff like that too. And if I had the opportunity to get back on a bike, I would probably look into one of them to become part of them in some way, shape, or form too. So yeah, a lot of cool stuff.
Absolutely. And my going back to the days, my uncle was in Hells Angels long time ago. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking a long time ago. Oh my gosh, like 70s. I look at him and go, "Uncle Lair, I don't know how you did it. I really don't know how you did it." You know what I mean? And but the things that you look back upon in your life, and everybody that you look to your children, because they are our focus, and they are going to precede us in life, right? We have to set good examples. We have to be the right instruments and nurturers for them, so that they can turn and be at peace and harmony, not just as indigenous children, but any child.
Right.
And we have to bring more to our world. I think it got so washed out with so many people who have big egos and agendas and their own interests at heart.
Yeah.
Minus everybody else.
Right.
And that goes for any I hate politics.
Oh, I do. Yeah.
You know, any politician, they're no good. They're no good. Who should be running the country is indigenous people. We did a fine job for hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of years. Serious.
So I do want to take the time, and I do this every time, so this is no slight against you, but I do this every time. I have to say hi to a Zhang right down here. So say hi.
Hello.
The reason we say hi to a Zhang is because you heard me say that 11 hours ahead of us is Indonesia. This is the Indonesian person that comes on and watches us. So she's pretty much just waking up right now saying hi. So
well, we say kwe.
You know what? I was going to tell you, I appreciate your message every single morning when you get up and you type that message to tell all of us good morning, but damn it, give me a translation.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. I just type, it's me, like, not even having 2 sips of coffee and doing that and then put the phone down, right?
Right. I read it and I'm like, man, I hope he's saying good morning and not that screw you, all you assholes.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Stuart's saying that he told me first he's like, tell me to check out an Indian. And then he said, I was riding in the 60s, still am. One of the smoothest bikes I ever had was an Indian.
Yep. And you know what? I wanted an Indian so bad. Then I seen this Harley Fat Boy converted into a deluxe type. It was beautiful, and I fell in love with it. But so then, you know what I say? I say, well, wait a minute. I am an Indian riding a bike.
Right.
Oh, shit.
So, can I ask what your wife's name is?
Yeah, Lesia.
Lesia?
Yeah, she's from the Azores, the Azore Islands.
Oh, I've been there. Military, so that was one of my stops going other places.
Oh, so you must have went to Sari Island.
Yes.
Yep.
I just want you to know that I told you I stalked you, so don't hate me.
Right.
But I will tell you that your wife is a badass. I think she outlifts you in the gym.
She's kind of ripped.
Yeah, she's kind of a badass. So I'm just yeah. You can pass that on to her. Then
I will.
Just let her know I'm afraid of her. So
we go to the gym like 6 days a week, 5-6 days a week, and she'll look over at me and I'm just drenched, and I know she wants to go, and she goes, "Are you tired?" I go, "No, I'm not. I want another hour."
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Robbie, I think I'm going to wrap it. I know you're an hour ahead of me.
There's so much we could have talked about, Tom. I mean,
well, here's my offer, though. I know we have so much more to talk about, which means I want to bring you on again.
Yep, absolutely.
And what I try to do, and I'll tell you the same thing I tell everyone else. I try to bring guests on every 6 months that I want to bring back, and the reason why is because it gives you 6 months to build new stuff, or 6 months for my audience to figure out what we talked about if we repeat it.
Right. I like that part.
So if you don't mind, I'm going to put you backstage. Please don't go anywhere because I'd like to talk to you afterwards.
Okay.
But I want to say thank you very much for being on, and I want to throw this up there again. So people, I put it in the comments. I've showed it a couple times. Everything he has that you need to know about is right here, www.robbiethomas.net. You can go right out there and you can go check out everything. He has videos. He has just readings you can go do out there. He has all this wonderful stuff out there. It's a great site to go out to. I went out there. I perused it probably 4 or 5 different times now. Just not really to gather information, just because every single time I learned something new, and it was all really, really cool and interesting. So I really want to make sure that you guys are getting out there. Jamie's saying goodnight. Thank you very much, Jamie.
Thank you, Miigwech.
Again, yeah. Translation needed. Got it.
Thank you.
But I appreciate you for coming on. Nikki's saying thanks for coming on the show. You do amazing stuff. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
And it was amazing having you on. I'm looking forward already to 6 months from now when I have you on again. So that's going to be January. So just kind of give you a time frame.
Perfect.
It'll be about January. So we'll be able to get through the holidays and all the family gatherings and all the fattening and all the opening of presents, and then all the drunkenness from the New Year's will have passed us. So then we'll be back at the sober time. So we'll be able to actually talk clearly. But please stay in the back really quick. I'm going to say goodnight to everybody, and I will be right back with you. So
thank you, Tom, and thank you, everybody.
Appreciate it. Thanks, brother. All right, everyone. That's my show. Thank you again for coming on to this special presentation, this special night. I hope you all enjoyed it. Robbie's a fantastic person. I'm so happy he agreed to come on to my show. And you can tell by just his stories and the way he talks, he's very passionate about what he does, and he's very good at it. Many different things he does for the community to help everyone else. And you got to realize he doesn't do this just in one location. He's worldwide. So he's helping everybody he possibly can that comes out to him and reaches out. So just a great guy all around. You met him tonight. Really funny, real personable. I would tell you people, if you want to know more about him, go out and get his books. Go watch the films. Go read about him, because he's just an amazing person overall. He does a great job doing the psychic profiling, but just as a human being, he's fantastic. So thank you again for being out here. I do have a show coming on Monday on the 1st, and I have on another. If you just got done watching Astara, she's kind of like an Astara type. Actually, they're friends. And her name is Annie, and she'll be coming on. So she's going to be a great show. She's full of energy. She has a great personality as well. I'm kind of excited for this one. She kind of intimidated me the first time I met her, because I thought I was speaking too loud when she was doing a reading, and she shot me a really dirty look. When I talked to her, she said she didn't even know I was there, so it was just me freaking out. But she's going to be on my show Monday at 7 o'clock Central. Please show up. Feel free to share this out with everybody. I'd love to have more people come on so we can grow this community. I think it's a great place for everybody to get to know each other, learn what each other can do, and it's just a benefit for us all to be helping each other out. So much love, everybody. I appreciate it. Have a great night. Stay safe. Have a great weekend, and I will see everybody